Yo, what's good? It's Drop from ProducerPolish.com. I'm just got this track lined up right here, Rico De Niro, and I figured I would do a decent video here on what a compressor is and how I use it anyway. And I mean, there's a lot of resources out there on all the specifics and everything, but I just wanted to give you my take. You know what I'm saying? I don't try to take anything and use too much compression in it, but it's important to have compression. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the most essential tools that you can use. I do use it pretty much on everything at some point, you know what I'm saying? And the main thing is you're going to gradually increase the amount of compression that you use as far as like when you're first mixing it and then you're mastering it and things like that. So keep that in mind, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to compress everything in one shot, you know what I'm saying? You want to compress things in segments, but overall, to go over really quick some of these things here on the compressor. Basically, one of the most important knobs is the ratio, and basically what the ratio says is for every decibel above the threshold, it equals to 1 decibel. So say it's set at 2 decibels, 2-to-1 ratio. Anything over the threshold is going to be equal to 1. So any 2 decibels over the threshold is equal to 1 decibel. So it's a 50%. You cut out 50% of the dynamics, basically right at 2. So that's why it's important to keep the ratios low at first and gradually bring them up. You know what I'm saying? I'm usually right around the 1.5 to 1.7, 2.0. Really don't get too much more than that, especially on vocals, unless it's really aggressive. Then I might get up there to 2.5. Especially with Rico here. Rico can be pretty aggressive on his takes sometimes, so I might leave that a little bit higher. But I got the track lined up. We're gonna take a listen to it. It's not the best quality recording right now, but you can definitely get an idea of how I'm setting this up. It's important to look at your meters here, and also note that the lower on the meter, it has a wider range, like 30 to 18 is just a small space, where the same amount of space right here is only a 3 decibel range. So keep in mind that when you're looking at levels maybe on the lower side, you might want to raise them up to get a really clearer look on the dynamic range that they might have. You know what I'm saying? So let's see what other knobs we can go over here. Is the attack. Basically, the compressor turns down volume, so anytime something gets louder, it's going to turn it down with a certain quickness that you can set here. It's in milliseconds and then microseconds. Usually I'm right around the 1 millisecond area for most things, and then I'll kind of dial it down as I go on and compress it more on other tracks, like as I do on master tracks and things like that. I'll compress it a lot more. And but for vocals and that, or like really aggressive vocals, I'll do like more in the microsecond range. But for most like regular vocals or regular rap vocals, or mainly my singing vocals, things like that, you know what I'm saying? Anytime a singer lays a track down, I'm definitely in the millisecond range. For the attack, the release is always right around the 150 millisecond. You know what I'm saying? In this area, it's really important though not to get caught up with the numbers. You know what I'm saying? You want to really just ride the beat of the song, especially with the attack and release. You want it to be like, I know that's why I'm around 1 millisecond for singers, because I know usually in singing it's not going to be fast paced words. They're going to be holding some notes out, so it's okay to let some of the beginnings of their words. You don't have to just squash them completely. You know what I'm saying? You can leave a little bit of dynamics there, because that's nice. You know what I mean? You want to hear dynamics in your music. Which is basically, dynamics is just the difference between the loud and the soft sounds. So if you hear something really loud and then all of a sudden there's a quiet part in the song, and you notice a difference in the actual level, it's gonna sound better. You know what I'm saying? Rather than being just one level the whole way through. So it's important to use these to ride the beat. And then probably the most important knob, the threshold. Basically, you set this comparative to how loud your recording is. Usually I want it right around where the midpoint of the like when it's going up and down on the meter. I usually go right around where the middle of the bar is. And but sometimes you want it on the higher side, especially towards the mastering phase. You know what I'm saying? It's all about gradually doing a little bit less and a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? On certain controls. So we'll go ahead and play this track and see what we can come up with here for a compressor setting. You can kind of just see how I work here.
You ain't with the shit, this music hit you like a break, fried crap, let it drop, nigga, I stay making hits, fun it all, won't
so I brought the threshold down about halfway, compared to where it's actually lighting up. He's pretty aggressive, I know that. That's why I kept the attack well below the millisecond, probably about half a millisecond. See how it's riding it right now, especially on the release there. I said a little bit of a longer release because he's word after word, so that way the compressor doesn't have to keep recovering after every word, I should say. And the ratio here is probably a little bit high. I'm going to take it down just a little bit. And let's bring the gain up here.
You ain't with the shits, this music hit you like a brick, fried crack.
So you can see how many decibels I'm taking away here. About 6 decibels I'm taking off of the dynamics right there. 6 to 7, 8 maybe. I raise the gain up here, and you can see also there's not as much room between the peaks and the low parts of his verse. So it's only like 3 or 4 decibels. I may even squash that maybe even a little bit more, because this is an aggressive song. I know that for a fact. So I'm gonna give it a good amount of compression. Just kind of fine tuning this attack setting. And just basically keep fine-tuning each setting little by little. So if I feel like I need more compression on his vocals, then I'll put just a little bit more attack, then a little bit more ratio, then a little bit more threshold, and then just keep going through those 3 until I feel like it's really taking control of the whole verse, which it pretty much is now. It's definitely getting a lot louder. It's going to stand out a lot more in the beat. So as you can see, you know what I'm saying, we had to squash this one a little bit more, but you're not always going to have to do that. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to just play it by ear, and that's the most important thing with compressing everything. Sometimes it takes a little while to hear the difference, but just keep at it and keep compressing. And this can translate to any program. Right now I'm using Pro Tools, but if you're using like FL Studio, Reason, anything that has a compressor, it's going to have a speed setting, you know what I'm saying, for on and off, and it's going to have a ratio setting. Sometimes it's not, you can't dial in the numbers. Sometimes it only lets you dial in like a lot or somewhat, you know what I'm saying, things like that. It'll have switches, but in a sense they're all going to be doing the same thing. So sometimes you won't have a threshold, sometimes you'll have an input and an output knob, which basically it'll have a threshold set in a certain spot, and as you bring your input up, more and more of the sound will be hitting the threshold. So it's the same concept, just basically the opposite of what this knob does, the threshold knob. So that's about it for the compressor. I'm definitely going to go into more in-depth uses, and also go through how I line up my compressors on a lot more of the tracks, and we'll keep going from here. So good looks for checking out the video. Make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, send me a comment, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.